And going back to that story of Jesus changing the water into wine, you find this right in that story. Because John tells us that this was the first sign that Jesus did as a demonstration of his glory. Now, what did he do there? He took a party that was about to run out of joy, and he made 150 gallons of superb wine and kept the party going. And he made a banquet steward look good, by the way. That was his first miracle. Why did he do that miracle? A sign in John, especially the first sign, is a way of Jesus telling the people who he is and why he came. You know what that miracle says? I am the ultimate host of the ultimate banquet that there is going to be, and I am your joy giver. Jesus came to give us joy. So they can add that. Not only is glory something that makes us go, wow, Jesus wants us to see his glory for our joy and your joy. Now, a full revelation of that glory awaits us in heaven. But every now and then, future glory breaks in upon the present. Theologians have a fancy word for it. They call it eschatological intrusion. Eschatology refers to end times, and intrusion, you know what that is. So when the future reality breaks in upon the present, we have what's called an eschatological reality. So while the full revelation of God's glory that gives us joy, the psalmist wrote about that in Psalm 16 when he said, in your presence is fullness of joy, at your right hand there are pleasures forevermore. While the full revelation of that glory awaits us, there are these eschatological intrusions of that glory that happen right here. What might we expect to see? What might that glory look like? Now, based on what I've said so far, that glory is anything that makes us go, wow, we can be forgiven for thinking that every manifestation of God's glory here, of Jesus' glory here, is going to be the kind of glory that we see when he raises the dead, when he speaks amazing words that have tremendous power on people. Well, that's certainly true, but I discovered as I was meditating over these months for this message, because that's only half the story. If you go back to that story in John chapter 2 of Jesus turning the water into wine, there's a couple of mysterious elements in there. Mary comes to Jesus at the beginning and says, they've run out of wine. Jesus' response is kind of broken. He says, woman, mother or woman? Woman? What does that have to do with me? Kind of brusque response, right? And then he says, my hour has not yet come. Now, what did he mean by that? Obviously, Jesus couldn't mean my hour for doing miracles hadn't come, because he was just going to do the miracle in a few minutes. What then did Jesus mean when he said, my hour has not come? Throughout John's gospel, the hour of Jesus refers to the hour of his suffering and death. Why did he make that remark? It's like a non sequitur in Latin, which means one statement doesn't follow from the next statement. She says to him, can you please, they've run out of wine, and he says, the hour of my death hasn't come yet. Unless, and I'm indebted to Tim Keller for his brilliant insight on this passage, unless, he asked this question, he said, when you go to a wedding, especially if you're not married yourself, what is one of the things you think about? Your own wedding. Will I get married someday? Will this happen to me? What if Jesus was thinking of his wedding? What if Jesus was thinking of the day when he will have the bride of Christ, that is you and me, flawless, perfect, radiant bride? He could not think about that without thinking of the only way he would ever make that bride radiant. And that is to his death upon the cross. That's why he said, my hour has not yet come.